We're counting down the top 10 things Aussie kids in the 1960s did that you just won't see today. From wild street races and backyard mayhem to schoolyard rituals you wouldn't believe now, every entry shows a lost world of freedom and danger most kids today couldn't imagine. Ready to see what's disappeared and why? Let's kick things off with number 10. In 10th place, nothing says 1960s Aussie. Childhood like racing billy carts down the street. Every kid worth their salt built a homemade rig from whatever they could scrounge. Old pram wheels, a battered fruit box, and a few planks pinched from Dad's shed. Rope steering was as fancy as it got, and brakes, forget it. Slowing down meant dragging your bare feet on the hot bitumen and hoping for the best. Saturday mornings turned quiet suburban hills into racetracks with mobs of kids flying down the slope, hair streaming and no helmet in sight. If you crashed into a fence or a letterbox, you shrugged off the gravel rash and lined up for another go. Sometimes the whole street turned out for a proper derby, cheering on the wildest contraptions. It was pure freedom, pure chaos, and a rite of passage that just would not fly today. Number 9. Nothing brings back the taste of school days quite like drinking warm milk straight from the crate. Every morning, a wooden crate loaded with little glass bottles would show up at the school gate, courtesy of the government's free milk scheme. By the time recess rolled around, those bottles had been baking in the sun, the milk inside turning lukewarm, and sometimes just a bit on the nose. But there was no wriggling out of it. Every kid had to down their third of a pint, whether they liked it or not. The foil caps became playground treasure, traded and collected by the hundreds. At its peak, the scheme served over 1 million Aussie kids a day. But by the early 70s, complaints about sour milk and mounting costs saw the end of the ritual. For better or worse, the era of crate milk faded away, leaving just the memory of that unmistakable taste. In 8th place, the sound of a teacher's drawer opening used to send a chill down every Aussie kid's spine. In the 60s, corporal punishment was just part of school life. Teachers in Victoria kept a thick leather strap handy, while up in Queensland it was the dreaded cane. Getting the cuts across your palms could happen for anything, from talking in class to forgetting your homework. It was not just for the big stuff. Minor slip-ups, late arrivals, even a cheeky grin at the wrong moment could earn you a whack. Most kids kept quiet about it at home, knowing they might get another serve from mum or dad. The strap and cane stuck around for decades, with Victoria banning the strap in 1986 and Queensland finally saying goodbye to the cane in 1994. It is a harsh memory for many, and a reminder of just how much school discipline has changed. Number 7. The ultimate Aussie kid's freedom pass was roaming the neighbourhood until the streetlights flickered on. You'd wolf down brekkie, grab your bike or just your bare feet and disappear for hours. No phones, no check-ins, and barely a glance back at the house. Kids trekked for kilometres, built cubby houses in the bush, caught tadpoles in the creek, and made up wild games in vacant lots, all under the unspoken rule, be home in time for tea. Parents did not worry much, because every neighbour kept an eye out, and the whole street felt like one big family. That easy trust started to crack after the Beaumont children vanished in 1966, with parents suddenly more wary about letting kids wander. Before that though, the world was your oyster, just you, your mates, and the long Aussie afternoons stretching ahead. Number 6. The early morning clatter of the milkman's cart was once as familiar as the kookaburras. Before dawn, the neighbourhood would stir to the sound of hooves, or, later on, the gentle whir of an electric float as the milkman made his rounds. Families left their empty glass bottles or a battered billy can at the front gate, ready to swap for fresh milk capped in shiny silver foil. The bread carter was not far behind, tossing loaves straight into outstretched hands, and sometimes the iceman, or the Chinese greengrocer would stop too. For kids, chasing the horse-drawn carts down the street was half the fun, and scoring a ride on the back felt like winning the lottery. By the late 60s though, supermarkets like Coles were popping up everywhere, and those daily deliveries slowly faded away, taking a whole chapter of local life with them. Number 5. Street cricket and backyard footy were the backbone of every Aussie kid's afternoon. All you needed was a battered tennis ball, a single bat, and a rubbish bin, or a 44-gallon drum to stand in for the wicket. The rules changed by the minute. 6 and out meant if you cleared the fence, you were the one climbing over to fetch the ball, and nobody wanted to face old Mrs. Wilson's wrath. Footy in the street ran on jumpers for goalposts, no umpires, no time limits, just a rolling scrum of kids playing. Until the light faded or mum called you in for tea. Mouthguards and shin pads were unheard of. Scraped knees, grass stains, and the odd blood nose were badges of honour. It was pure, unfiltered chaos, and somehow everyone knew exactly what counted as fair play. Number 4. Piling into the back of the ute or station wagon was just how Aussie families hit the road in the 60s. Seatbelts weren't even a thought. Kids bounced around the cargo area, perched on blankets and pillows, or slid across the vinyl with every sharp turn. Long trips to the beach meant a back tray full of giggling kids, and the lucky ones might even ride on the roof rack for a lap around the block. Babies rode up front on mum's lap, no booster seats in sight. In 1970, Victoria made history as the first place in the world to make seatbelts compulsory, after the national road toll peaked at more than 3,500 deaths that year. The new law sparked a 13% drop in fatalities almost overnight. It marked the end of wild, freewheeling car journeys and the start of a new era of road safety for Aussie kids. Number 3. The corner shop was every Aussie kid's first taste of freedom and sugar. Kids as young as 5 wandered down with a handful of coins and a handwritten note from mum to buy bread, milk, or even a pack of Winfield Blues for the old man. No one batted an eyelid when you handed over cash for cigarettes, and the shopkeeper knew everyone by name. The real prize was the lolly counter. Glass jars packed with cobbers, musk sticks, freckles, and milk bottles, all sold by weight for a few pennies. You would agonize over your choices, stretching your pocket money as far as it would go. The milk bar was more than a shop. It was the local hangout, with a pinball machine buzzing in the corner and the jukebox playing the latest hits. Trust was the rule, not the exception, and it was a world away from today's locked cabinets and age checks. Number 2. Schoolyard fights in the 60s were just part of the rough and tumble code. If 2 kids had a falling out, you would settle it behind the toilet block, or out the back of the oval. No teachers, no parents, and definitely no paperwork. A bit of shoving, maybe a black eye, and most of the time it ended with a handshake or a silent truce. Teachers might watch from a distance, but unless someone was bleeding all over their uniform, they let the kids sort it out. There were hardly any suspensions, no phone calls home, and no one writing up incident reports. You took your lumps, dusted yourself off, and got on with the day. It was all about sorting your own problems, learning where the line was, and earning a bit of grudging respect, even from the bloke you just copped one from. And finally, in first place, nothing sums up the wild freedom of a 60s Aussie summer like swimming in dams, rivers, and the ocean with 0 adults in sight. Kids would spend hours bombing off rope swings into muddy farm dams, paddling through creeks, or braving the surf at unpatrolled beaches, all without a grown-up to tell them otherwise. Sunburn was a badge of honour, and nobody bothered with sunscreen, hats, or even a second thought about what might be lurking under the water. Fences around dams were unheard of, and most country kids learned to swim by sheer necessity, or not at all. It wasn't until years of tragic drownings, especially in rural areas, that councils started putting up warning signs and, much later, fencing off waterholes and tightening pool laws. Back then, though, the only rule was to be home before dark, if you didn't get lost in the bush or come home glowing red from the sun. It was risky, sure, but for many, it's the memory of pure sun-soaked adventure that sticks the longest. Across all these memories, one truth stands out: trust between kids, parents, and neighbours. That trust shaped resilience in a way rules and screens never can. The world has changed, but the stories and grit from that era are still worth celebrating. Share yours below.